Hi guys, Dark Humility here with the Project Diablo 2 Season 9 Inferno Sorc on the hardcore ladder. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different where we actually go over a kind of like early mid-game version of the build that is mostly meant to farm LOD content to show you guys how easy it is to farm with an Inferno Sorc without too much gear. And of course, even without this much gear, you can actually go throughout the entire game just with pretty much this leaf staff here, and you can level yourself up and push the whole game. So yeah, it's a pretty awesome build. It's been completely reworked as of Season 9. A lot of people are used to Inferno being garbage, but Season 9 is different. And it is now a very fun build to level as well as to farm with early game, and even all the way into the late game, as you will see with one of the demo videos we've already posted of a fully geared Inferno Sorc clearing tier 3 maps. It is not maybe the very fastest mapper, but it's definitely a very, very strong build all the way throughout the game, so hopefully you guys enjoy. And let's get to it. Let's go check out some of the stats that are important on the Inferno Sorc. So we're playing hardcore, so our res is going to make sure we're definitely good on that. It's always good to have good res though, so you're not constantly dying, softcore or otherwise. Now, the next important thing I think to talk about on this character though, in general though, is of course, you know, if you want to be tankier, you can have more damage reduction and you could prioritize that. It's not necessary because usually you could just position yourself in such a way to where you are just killing the monsters and not taking too much damage. But the most important stat I would say to look at is your cast rate. Now, cast rate on an Inferno Sorc is not insanely important. It's actually like, I would say, like less than important than a lot of other stats, and the reason being is that the actual Inferno cast itself is a channel, and a channeling skill, kind of like, you know, Arctic Blaster. This skill does not require faster cast rate. However, I do like FCR if you are teleporting to the farming areas. It's really useful for that, such as Stony Tomb or Maggot Lair, or to bosses such as Endariel or Mephisto, where I'd say it's even more essential. If you're not doing boss farming though, there's definitely a good argument to make for not even needing that much FCR at all, possibly sticking around 70 FCR. But on your weapon swap early on, before you have Call to Arms, it definitely makes sense to maybe stuff a bunch of FCR there, and then at least hit the 110 breakpoint using your swap. Of course, your swap could also be used for magic find swaps, such as like for Alibaba, and a magic find shield such as Milibrega's shield, or something similar, just to finish off bosses and then to get the maximum MF magic find kill on them. But in general, either one is a pretty good approach. So faster cast rate is kind of optional. It's like the one sorceress where it's pretty optional, and like in an area like cows, let's say you're doing like cow farming, you can almost make an argument for not needing any of it at all. Because you won't be using teleport. It's literally just for teleport that you have faster cast rate. In cows, you might want teleport to reposition here and there, but you don't want to use teleport too much in there, as it'll usually get you killed, or it's just not very efficient in general. It's easier to run to the cows using Blaze, other means. This character has two main sources of mobility, faster cast rate and faster run walk because of Blaze. So once again, not insanely important to have faster cast rate. I think that's pretty important to kind of discuss, just so that people understand what are the benefits of faster cast rate and what it doesn't do for this build. Alright, and of course for LOD farming, the main benefit of course of LOD farming is you can jack your magic find up pretty high before you can do maps, or before you get into maps or want to get into maps, and you can make it to where you have no problem farming those items from various farming areas, which we will go over. talk about her top farms, which are mostly top farms for most fire builds as well. Alright. Faster hit recovery is good, so when you teleport into a pack on accident, you can get out. It's not insanely essential, but on hardcore, I definitely recommend trying to hit some of those higher breakpoints if you can. Might be difficult though because of the staff we're using currently, but that's all there is to it. Alright. And then that is pretty much it. So you just want to have enough strength to wear your gear, enough dex to wear your gear. We have enough dex to wear a wizard spike on swap for faster cast rate here. And then this is a build that uses energy shield, and for the most part you can max out energy shield along with Inferno and all of its synergies. And energy shield is very good in season 9 because it has the telekinesis synergy built into it, which means you lose less mana per point of damage just by putting hard points into energy shield. So at the very least, you usually want to balance between vitality and energy. You can put all your points into energy, especially if you're playing softcore as well, and fully rely on your energy shield. You can also do that on hardcore once your gear is better and you get enough life just from items alone. And then you can just like max out energy and have a crazy powerful energy shield and do that. We're not quite at that point, so we're kind of like splitting a bit. I'd say we're putting a bit more into vitality than energy currently, just because our HP wouldn't be very high without it. And remember, you know, if you lose your energy shield for any reason and you don't have much life, you're dead in the water. So that's definitely important to realize for hardcore or softcore, one way or the other. Skills are pretty straightforward. You're gonna max out Inferno, and then you're gonna max out its synergies first, as they give 20% damage per level, significantly higher than Fire Mastery, which is 4% and 1 Pierce. So you'll put 1 point of Fire Mastery upon hitting level 30, and then you'll max out all these, and then max out Inferno, put 1 point of Fire Mastery, max out these, and then you'll max out Fire Mastery. Now in hardcore, I'd made sure to also prioritize putting points into Energy Shield maybe a bit sooner. On softcore, you can wait till later on if you want to start maxing Energy Shield, but that's very good as well. Since this is a channel as well, you don't actually lose much damage from the teleport debuff, only for the first second. So this is damage per second, so after that first second the damage is normal. So maxing out teleport isn't insanely effective on this build, but you could do that to help out your initial damage if you want quick bursts of damage and to use mobility to move on from there as fast as possible. Of course, you can also go Shiver Armor or Chilling Armor. We don't have a ton of the defense stat yet, so I don't know how useful this is at the moment. This is also not Frozen Armor, which you guys might be used to from the original Diablo 2, where monsters are instantly frozen upon touching you, so they just get chilled. So it slows them down a little bit, but it won't actually prevent more damage from coming in. So it's ultimately up to you whether or not you want to prioritize or make those a bit more of a feature of the build. Another thing is that Leaf Staff does grant Warmth, which is really good mana regeneration for teleporting and for keeping your mana up for Energy Shield. If you don't have Leaf Staff or you're not using it, you're going to have to put 1 point into Warmth at the very least for mana regeneration. Alright, next thing to go over is the Mercenary. So early on, this Mercenary is really useful before you get CTA, and it will definitely help you survive hell farming. You usually want to do Nightmare cow farming until you get resistances and life from charms mostly, so that you can actually push hell. But one thing that's going to make it surviving hell is a lot easier is the battle orders provided by a Whirlwind Mercenary, which you can buy in Act 5 after saving the Barbarians. Here we have a bunch of very basic items that I just found from doing a couple of boss runs. Nothing too crazy, really. I mean, you can find things that are better. I had Hellslayer Decapitator as well. And just anything that you can put that has, like, res, DR. And then some kind of weapon that does damage will help him survive quite a bit. So try to get that damage up as high as you can. But it's not super important what he's actually wearing for the most part. He's there to provide you with battle orders, and you can reposition him away if he's getting himself killed, or feed him juves via shift potion button.
Thanks.
Like that. We just fed him a juve for no reason. There you go. Alright. And so, next, of course, would be the gear. So there's a lot of things to prioritize on the gear in the early game, early mid game, whatever you want to call this. The main thing, though, that's pretty crazy about this build, which I think...
tell that I'll be your best friend in this forsaken camp.
Thank you so much for the follow, Grimjack. Thank you so much for the follows, guys. The main thing to prioritize on this build, though, is to make sure to get this as soon as possible. All you have to do is buy a short staff with no sockets or 2 sockets from normal Act 1 Akara. And you can get one with 3 to Inferno on it, and then you'll end up with 6 more points into Inferno just for making the Runeward Leaf. Once you do that, you have a 9 skill staff for your skill. It's pretty insane. Leaf is literally best in slot for Inferno for a very long time. Only very, very strong weapon combinations beat this, such as Ming Song's Lesson filled with fire facets, or Phoenix plus Ashuta's Temper, with pretty good rolls, honestly. You're gonna need some pretty good items to beat the Leaf Staff, so you don't have to worry about replacing this for a long time. I'm even using this on hardcore, as you can see. It's totally possible. You get res and mana per kill as well. You even get a little bit of FCR. It is possible to also find exceptional and elite versions of staves that have 3 to Inferno and 2 sockets, which hopefully your loot filter searches for. Mine, the ADEV-DH filter, does, of course, include those. And then you can get ones of higher, faster cast rate, but you'll have to find one of those, as you cannot buy that from a vendor. So, and you'll have to find that later into the game. Haven't found it yet, which is fine, but it's okay. One thing to note, of course, is that with 9 skills on your staff, you really don't need many more plus skills to be effective on this build. I played through Early Hell Nightmare. It does everything pretty much just fine. You can find items as simple as Peasant Crown or Cow King's Hat, but then you can also use just a Lore Helm, such as this right here, that give you +1 to skills, and that will be enough just to add a significant boost of damage. As you can see here, though, we have a Shaco, so that's nice. 2 skills is very good. Want to prioritize MF as well, Magic Find, so Tarn Helm would also be a good choice as well here. Things like Viper Magi and Scolders would be good as the armor. K Hagens as well. The only problem is you got to make sure to have resistances as well, so it can be a challenging thing to balance. That's why we're using runes here, but if you don't care enough about your resistances, or if you die, you can always go more Magic Find. So you literally don't need many more plus skills because of this. You can get a couple other plus skills elsewhere and just focus on Magic Find, making this build a very effective early game farmer. Of course, something like an amulet with plus skills, res, Magic Find, whatever, faster cast rate, even mana for your energy shield, all very effective stuff. Mage Fist is usually considered best in slot, but not always. Once again, faster cast rate isn't really required, depending on what you're farming. So if you're mostly farming cows, you might actually prefer something like Frostburns with maximum mana and negative fire res, and that will give you more damage while also giving you more survivability. And if you don't need to teleport, that's also highly effective as well. But since we're farming everything on this build, Mage Fist makes a lot of sense and will help us get us to our proper destination. Morning, everyone. What's up, guys? Alright. So, of course, we also have some other very interesting things. I got lucky and corrupted a 20 FCR ring, so that's kind of neat. And then we also have a caster belt here with 10 FCR. Just uses the Ith and the Perfect Amethyst recipe, and you can get cast rate on the belt. And all this helps us hit, of course, 105 faster cast rate on our swap here. So that's really good stuff. And then Magic Find on boots. Remember, you can also craft bountiful recipes, caster recipes to get faster cast rate. Bountiful with the topaz will allow you, of course, to get Magic Find on boots pretty easily. And even early in Nightmare Cows, you can make a cow portal next to Geed or something and go in and out and farm him for Magic Find and res gear such as belts, boots, and gloves as well. So you don't need anything too fancy to make this work. We do have some level of gear here because you've been farming for a little bit, but it's nothing too intimidating. Don't feel like you can't get to this point. This character literally just needs this. It's a Tur and a Rao rune, and you can farm those from normal Countess and from normal card. Now it's possible they might nerf the number of skills provided to Inferno on the Leaf Staff in the future, but even if they do, it just means that other options like caster orbs and other things become easier to beat this in the future, and there's other options that you can use and that will surpass this a lot faster, such as lidless and oculus combinations and things like that. Alright, and then of course, whatever plus skills you can manage are always good. Whatever Magic Find you can manage, resistances, faster hit recovery, life, all good stats, of course. And of course, they have a couple skillers there for the moment being. Torch, once again, totally optional. I just, found some high runes, of course, and bought a torch. I traded for one on the website, so there you go. Nothing too difficult there. And torches are nice. 2 skills, res, mana, and life, everything you pretty much need. And there you have it. And of course, those are ones. So let's go over her main farming areas. You're going to want to start off on early Hell. Nightmare Cows are what you farm before you get into Hell. So once again, build up those life and res charms so you can get to the point of farming Hell, which I would say, once you get to about like 900 HP and however much mana with maybe at least like 1 point into energy shield, you'll be fine on softcore for farming Hell. Of course, on hardcore, I do recommend maybe having more points in the energy shield at the very least, and making sure your res is at least above 50 across the board, except for poison, where you can just use antidote potions or go back to town if you get severely poisoned. That won't actually kill you, so, well, unless you let it. Unless you watch her HP drain and just get hit by something else, that will get you killed. Alright, so let's go over her main farms. So, fire character, particularly a fire Sorc, has a lot of potential farms open to her because she has a lot of mobility. This means that you can do boss farms very easily, just as easily as a lot of the level 85 areas. And you can also do corrupted zones of various kinds as well. Alright, so let's go over her first farm, which is Hell and Dario. Notice that I weapon swapped to my higher, faster cast rate swap. Leaf Staff only gives 10 faster cast rate, which limits your options. And if you don't want to spend like all of the rest of your faster cast rate on the rest of your build, which will probably take away from your Magic Find, it's nice to just put something like a Wizard Spike on swap and to go with that. Reason how I got here so quickly, even this is not a single player course, this is live, is that there are ways to read maps in the catacombs, particularly from 2 to 3, which are looking for like east facing tiles as compared to the entrance tile for catacombs 2. I recommend reading up on map reading tutorials on sites such as Maxroll, which will help you understand how to do that. Of course, that shows it for D2R, but it also works for PD2 as well. Make sure you have your energy shield up. Note that Inferno is a pretty unique skill. So obviously Andariel gets absolutely destroyed, which is pretty awesome. She has negative fire res already, so it means she's very vulnerable to fire damage, making this a very good boss choice, even with much weaker gear than this to kill. As you can see, we're at level 38 Inferno on this character at the moment. and it absolutely like wrecks her in like seconds. But you don't even need anything near that high, and it's effective. But I was gonna say, this is a unique skill for a couple reasons. One, it's a channel, so it doesn't require faster cast rate, but two, it actually lowers enemy fire resistance. This means that it technically has lower resistance or conviction built into it almost. I think -30 is as high as it gets, but Conviction Aura, for comparison, has -34 resistance on Project Diablo 2. So Infinity is almost as strong as this is by itself. Now, of course, you can add Infinity to this build and make it even stronger and lower even more res. But note that it kind of has it already built into the skill, and it can even break fire immunities just like Infinity can. It can't break every fire immunity, of course, but it can break a lot of fire immunities. So it kind of depends on how immune the monster is and what level this skill is at. But for the most part, it can break most fire immunities, such as zombies. Like for instance, I can show you guys here real quick. Let's see, where are the zombies? There he is, zombies. Alright, you see how they're fire immune? Now they're not. As long as the Inferno is touching them, they're no longer fire immune, and you and even buddies can kill them with fire damage. So it's a very effective skill for parties as well, if you have a lot of fire builds on your party. It's very good to bring along in tier 3 maps and dungeons for that reason as well. If you plan on having multiple fire builds, Inferno should definitely be one of them. Alright, so there's Hell Andy. She goes down pretty easily. That's really the only main farm I would really touch in Act 1. Act 1 is pretty heavily fire immune in general. So Indariel does not like fire damage though, so that's good. Very, very easy stuff there. Alright, so then... Wow, that's lucky. Well, that's good. So Stony Tomb is located in the Rocky Waste. It is a max level area. It has no fire immunes. It's pretty useful actually for this reason. There's not even really fire resistance either, which means that actually encountering fire immunes in here, even elite monsters, is pretty rare, which is pretty nice. It's not normally necessarily right by the town. You can find it anywhere in the Rocky Waste. Typically towards the walls, so you can always just look towards the walls and you'll find it typically. But we got lucky and it's right towards this first wall here. It's right in front of the town. That's nice. And then, of course, you can teleport between mob packs and then just target the elites and you're good to go. Now, one thing to note is that if you don't want to teleport, you get the teleport debuff. Or if in general, you know, you're not confident about your survivability if you jump into packs, you can always use Blaze to move between packs, and this is where movement speed can come in. So we do have some faster run walk on this build, but boots like Merman's Sprocket can actually make you run insanely fast, with the movement speed buff also applied by Blaze. And so you can use Blaze to move in between packs, or you can just go all the way down. Now obviously, I can swap to my teleport here. Wow, dual aura, that's dangerous. Even for this character, that could be bad, jumping into that, depending on the situation. Alright. But yeah, max level area can drop any item in the game. And always get those juicy high runs. Or else how. And there you go. So it's definitely one of the top farms in a fire character for sure. Cool thing about farming on single player, if you are playing PD2 single player, is that you can't even know exactly where the Stony Tomb is always, and you can even like farm a map where it's either close to town or close to the Dry Hills waypoint. So that's kind of neat. Alright, there you go. As you can see, just level 38 Inferno actually absolutely melts everything. And remember, it's players 5 drops and players 1 in PD2, so this is a very efficient way to farm. no matter what. And of course, looking for the Stony Tomb or the Maggot Layers, such as the Maggot Layer in Far Oasis. Pulling out your faster cast rate swap is always the play. There you go, right there. As you can see in here, it's pretty tight corridors, so using Blaze, honestly, most of the time is not a bad idea. Maggot Layer is another 85 area, and it has 3 levels, which means that you can kind of milk it for a while here, and you don't have to go between different farming areas, which makes it kind of desirable. The one weakness is that you don't have large open spaces, but that's okay. It's kind of made up for the fact that, like I said, once you find it, you got 3 levels of max level monsters and elites that you can kill. So that's kind of nice. Once you find it, it's pretty good. It even has multiple super chests, usually on each level, which are these right here. Which means your odds of finding an Ohm or a low rune are pretty high, as those are the highest runes you can find in Act 2 Hell from a clickable. So those do tend to be pretty common. Kind of like Sur Rune and Bur Rune is common in Act 3. Of course, Lower Kuros is dead at this point, so we're not going to be super chest farming in Act 3. But maybe if you remember them from the original game, same concept. But yeah, Blaze, and then pretty much anything the fire touches dies. Now, even with, like, you know, 4 less skills, 5 less skills, it's totally farmable, it's still easy. And at that point, you're only like a couple skills removed from just an Inferno staff, a leaf staff. So that's really all you need. Really basic stuff. Come on. Just the other day we found an F grandfather in here, which is pretty sweet. That's a pretty nice find for early ladder, right? So yeah, every item can drop in the game in here, it's pretty cool. And there can be fire immunes in here, but there's no native fire immunes. So maggots do have some fire resistance, so they will be immune, but you can usually break the immunes just with the Inferno debuff. The negative fire res debuff. That's all it takes. So I use a combination of Blaze and Teleport in here to min-max. Can take lots of elites down. Now this one we can't kill. He's fire enchanted, which means his immunity is so high that I can't break it. That's alright, it's what your mercenary is there for. Nothing too big of a deal. You don't even have to wait, you can also skip it. You don't feel it's worth it. Remember, general principle is that whenever you're going through the game on a sorceress, if you reach an immunity to your element and you can't kill it, don't wait, just pass it up. Just literally pass it up with the sword. Pass it up with teleport. You don't have to kill every monster. There's no rule that says you have to. If your mercenary is too weak as well, especially that's the case. Of course, Inferno can kill a lot of fire immunes, which is good, but that doesn't mean you have to. What's up, Nub? Thank you so much for the follow. How's Arctic Blast doing? Arctic Blast is also another very fun approach to starting out that is pretty similar, actually, to Inferno. You have a bit more elemental resistance from the Cyclone armor, so that's kind of neat. You also have hurricane damage added on top of that. But you don't have energy shields, so there are some weaknesses. Of course, you also have animals on the Druid as well. Sorc teleports faster and has energy shields, so I would say those are probably the strengths of the Inferno Sorc, but otherwise the Arctic Blast skill is very similar. Also debuffs cold res. I'd say the other thing, the other main difference is that fire immunes are easier to break, which means you can break a lot more fire immunes with Inferno versus Arctic Blast, where cold immunes tend to be a lot tougher to break. There's a lot of very high resistance cold immunes that just are unbreakable by any means. And so, yeah. That's basically that. Alright. Very nice. Are you talking about on the Arctic Blast Sorc there, Uber Soul?
I can't carry anymore.
Yeah, so like the main things you should focus on are stacking Magic Find and getting some plus skills. Hardcore, make sure you have resistances as well. Make sure you have Energy Shield. Really though, it's not too difficult. You know, it's like I said, you can get 30 skills very easily just between lore and the Inferno staff, and then from there, anything with like plus skills, any amulet with plus skills, like 3 fire skills, pretty easy to get as well early on. And then your damage is automatically like really high, and it's that easy to get a lot of plus skills in this build currently in Season 9. But even if it's not, like I said, you know, you might just have to do a bit more farming for maybe you craft some orbs. Caster orbs can of course get up to level 9 Inferno on a one-handed weapon. So there's a lot of other things you can do as well.
That I'll be your best friend in this Forsaken.
But this weapon by itself makes this build viable for farming hell. Once you get it sufficiently tanky from Nightmare Cow farming. So anyway, I think you get the idea with the Magulator. The Magulator is pretty fun, and it's very effective. I've definitely found a lot of things in there already this season, so it's pretty cool. Haven't farmed as much as some people have, but a few days into this season, but we're still doing pretty well here. Alright, so now there are other farms that we can do as well. So fire builds are very strong at all kinds of farms. In this game, we actually have a corrupted zone, which you can only activate after killing Bale and Hell. But once you do it, you can kill the monsters in a corrupted zone, which will have a much higher chance of dropping Worldstone shards. Yeah, see, I could break these fire immunes too. That one is fire enchanted, so he has the extra fire resistance. So he's probably not going to die like that. This mercenary can be annoying sometimes. You gotta like teleport to reset his whirlwind animation. But yeah. Anyway, nothing too big. But as you can see though, this is currently a level 85 area, and you can kill the monsters in it. Maybe find some Worldstone shards, get experience. You can actually find any item in here at the moment as well. If you guys are not familiar with the concept of a corrupted zone, it's kind of similar to D2R's terror zones. Basically, you get a max level area or higher, in this case max level in PD2. You can drop any item in the game in some random area, and also has a higher chance of dropping Worldstone shards. So that's cool as well. And it'll persist for the entire duration of the game when you enter it, so it's kind of neat as well. They do last a lot shorter though, in terms of in general though, so it's harder just to milk one area. It kind of just, you know, depends on what comes up. You could definitely do like a few farms and then move on to something else if you want. It's a nice change of pace though. I haven't seen any worldstone shards though. Interesting. Oh, didn't get lucky on that one, but depending on if the area has fire immunes or not, though, it will be good for an Inferno sort. Alright, another area that's kind of underrated, I would say, is Flare Jungle. Once again, you can always just run through here with Blaze as well. Remember, Blaze is a synergy for Inferno, which means that your speed and your damage will actually get higher as you level up the damage on Inferno, which is pretty useful. And if you can get one of these areas of high soul killer density, it can be a pretty good farm. What's up, Light Judge? How you doing? I don't know if this one has high density though. Possibly not. That's okay. There's other things we can kill in here. Anyway, only the shamans are fire immune, but there's like usually really high density of like of the fallen creatures, so that's pretty good. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't look like we got much density in this one. But you can see that there are a lot of these things. And sometimes you get like hordes of them. You can farm them for high runs and whatnot. It's a level 80 area, so it's pretty decent. And fire builds tend to be very good at that. So that's kind of a cool thing, especially if you want to change a pace there. And then of course, while fire builds are not good at the standard Travancore farming, which is the council members, they can drop tons of items with really good loot tables in general. Can drop practically everything, except for the highest tiers of loot, which can only be found in like max level areas. But there are fire immune council members, so that can be problematic on a fire build. But there is a place where there's no inherently fire immune council members. And they're also surrounding Mephisto, which is obviously also vulnerable to fire damage potentially. So you can kill a council member and Mephisto at the same time if you just go for Mephisto. Alright. So once again, map reading can be very useful when boss farming. But since the starting area here is pointing down this way, we know it has to be west facing relative to the starting area, so it's going to be facing this way, kind of where my cursor is going. So we're going to want to go over that way as much as possible. And we'll probably find Endurance 3. Oh man, I got a big raid coming in. Light and Mizuki, yeah, so here you go. West facing tile. Perfect. Hey, thank you so much for the raid, guys. Whoa. Sure was your idea, Nimi. There you go. Hopefully you guys all had an awesome stream. We are playing some modded Diablo 2 at the moment. Just having a good time farming here and whatnot. Most popular mod, the Project Diablo 2 mod, so it's cool. So as you can see there, Mephisto will absolutely melt at level 38, but even before then, it's pretty good. And you can see we can kill all the council members, so that's nice. They're all lightning immune, so you don't have to worry about the immunities so much in here. They can be fire immune, of course, but even if they are, it's often breakable with the Inferno debuff. So that's really cool as well. Yeah, you need more people to consume it. Shill for the PD2. Good stuff, good stuff. Nice to see all you guys. I mean, we just found a Reaper's Toll from Mephisto too, so that's a pretty good item. Let's slam it in this video here. Let's see what happens to it. You never know, right? You never know. We don't need an Alder's weapon. Where? MF. There you go. Got some magic find on it. Well, you can use it on the Mercenary for amp proc, or you can use it on yourself to proc amp on a number of physical damage builds. It's pretty cool. Yeah, this is the Eth Grandfather we actually found in the Maggot Layers, so that was kind of neat. Alright. Anyway. So, that's pretty good. I wouldn't recommend farming anything in Act 4. If you think Act 1's bad fire immune-wise, Act 4 is even worse. You can break the Doom Knight's fire immunity, but you can't break the Venom Lord's with Inferno, so it's kind of rough. Of course, we can kill Eldritch and Shink, though. If you might remember, we already kind of pulled him on accident, so that's why he was next to the waypoint. There we go. So he's pretty easy to kill, which is pretty nice. And you'll notice that these dudes are fire immune, but look how fast we killed them with Inferno. Once you get enough plus skills, that negative res will do the trick. No infinity required. Really want to emphasize that, because a lot of people always ask, you know, what kinds of farms can you do, or how effective is it really at farming without infinity? Well, you can see right there that if you can even break fire immunes, that means you can even do map damage in maps for monsters that have fire resistance. I'm not going to do mapping yet on this character to show you guys because it's hardcore and I feel like we probably need a little bit more gear, but to make it efficient and whatnot. But there's plenty of maps with no fire immunes. If you check out the tier list, you'll see the new Season 9 map immunities to the far right of that spreadsheet as well, and you can do tier 1s, tier 2s, and even tier 3s accordingly. The maps that don't have fire immunes, and target those when you do enough damage. Generally, I don't recommend mapping though before about like the 40 skill threshold though, as that is when you pretty much have enough damage when it might actually become somewhat efficient to do that. But yeah, that's pretty much it for most of the standard farms. Of course, there's one more farm that's very important, which is the one that we talked about doing in Nightmare to get to Hell in the first place, which is also very important. So it'll be the last farm we do for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this kind of like early mid-level Inferno Sorc here and are inspired maybe to make your own. Want an idea of a really cool leveling and farming build in PD2 and Season 9. It has just been made possible via the rework to the skill itself, increasing the range of it, increasing the damage, and in general, just making it a lot more effective. Yeah. Well, so you won't necessarily break everything with this plus infinity, but it'll definitely add more options, and it definitely can make it easier to do more damage to fire immunes that are broken. Does infinity make sense with Inferno? Well, more negative res the better. You can never have too much negative res, especially when you're doing maps, so those are good questions. Negative res will always help fire, cold, or lightning damage. So even though it has it built into it, you can always have more. Alright, so these are Hell Cows. Ooh. Fast, boys. So I like using Blazing Cows so I don't accidentally teleport into them and die. Primarily. But you can see though, the cows die pretty darn fast. More. Now, I actually put a lot of points into energy shields, so we're missing a lot of points into fire mastery.
Best friend in this
So, also keep something in mind, we're not even totally maxed out with synergies here, which is kind of nuts if you think about it. But just another 11 points into this, you could have another negative 11 fire resistance on the fire mastery skill itself. So, cows are pretty fire resistant, so one thing to know here is just with some leveling up, we can very easily get to the point to where we can do even more damage to the cows and milk them in seconds. But as you can see, it's already an effective cow farmer without maxed out fire mastery, so that's pretty insane, right? Oh yeah, Bramble works with Poison Creeper, 100%. On a completely unrelated note. Thank you so much for the follows. Thank you so much for launching a Xana attack on the stream, Lady Mizuki, once again. Hope you had a good stream. Already found some nice things from cows this season as well. Cows, I always like cows on fire build farms. I feel like things like fire traps, fire druid, fire builds do very well in here. So do a lot of lightning, and pretty much a lot of builds of every element do well in here. Maybe except for physical damage. Physical damage needs a bit more damage to be effective in here. It's a little tougher. No wiltings. Navy definitely keeping us watered for sure. Oh yeah. Not a plant. I'm a plant, you know, a CIA plant. You just don't know it. So you'll notice there we found a 3 meteor war staff. That's kind of neat. Ooh, nice. That's actually an upgrade. I need a bit more mana on that. As you can see, charms are definitely one of the main fortes of the cow level. Always pick up those jewels as well on PD2 especially. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it for the demo. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the mini guide and demo here for the Inferno Sorc, and hopefully you learned a bunch of things, even at a early mid-level, to see like how powerful this character is without too many plus skills, and also to gain some, you know, reassurance that you can definitely start out leveling this, and it's super easy to get its starting weapon as well. Even if you have a white staff from Akara, it's easy to punch 2 sockets into it with Amrel, Perfect Amethyst, or using Larzek socket quest, so this will be insane for a very long time. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Have fun in PD2 Season 9, and GG. DH over and out. Smash it.